this chair. This chair.
Hello to you, my friends. I've been on a roll. I'm having a good time doing these videos right now. It's really soothing. Just keeping it down to, I think really hard about something. I roll the camera and I go. Pre-structural integral theory teaching here. Today, I did a previous video examining David Long's non-reductionism theory. It is, I would call it a spin-off of integral theory with some modifications, criticisms of integral theory that it's applying to move forward. And that will be the focus, because that's what's of interest to us in integral. So, because that's the case, I need to take a little time to just flesh out what his theory is and from my perspective, like what he's doing, what he's all about, all right? I would say he is a person who is very, very like me. It's astounding. So I watched all of his videos. There's like several, there's not a lot. There's several conversations and a couple of really, really high quality like presentation videos. He's been a musician. He's been a band leader. He's been in integral theory like his whole adult life and involved as time's passed and everything. And he's decided to turn it into a more serious thing. Like his spin on it is like what he's up to. Great. Same as me. Same dude as me. He has issues with integral and he wants to do it a little bit differently. Same as me. And of course he has the integral theory itself, which is the content of most of the videos. So in general, when I'm watching these videos, I am in complete agreement with almost everything he's saying. All right. In terms of the integral theory, he's spot on about levels, I would particularly say, and that's what they talk about a lot, basically a spiral dynamics up to level 7. That's spiral dynamics. That's Don Beck's spiral dynamics. I know that whatever the heck's going on inside of David's subjective experience of being a person, I can see he is a very, very intelligent guy. He's a strong, persevering, leadership type person. He's a critical ass thinker. I see him as very important to this movement, level 7, by whatever words. I think he is a firebrand and a powerful person, and I wish him the absolute best as he develops this into his career and his business more and more and more. And that isn't like a debate point, all right? I mean that like from the core of my being. That's my primary feeling. I'm watching their videos. They're spot on. These are the things we need in the dialogue. There's a long section where he goes over all of his goals and plans for non-reductionism, and I think it's a step forward for sure. I mean, he's talking about like maybe it's just all hypothetical, but these are real plans for ways to move forward, and this is what I'm asking for. This is what integral wants. So this is beautiful. I don't want this to be like you're in or you're out kind of thing. I want people to just be open-minded to unthink me. That pleases me. I'm happy with that. If you like it, if you don't like it, if you disagree with it, if you think it's dumb, if you're open-minded to it, and I mean genuinely, you know, you and me here, are you open-minded to this? That if you are, you're cool with me. And who cares what I think anyways? If you're not cool with me, so what? I'm an idiot, right? Because I'm trying to get you to do something you don't want to do. That's no good. But I'm asking to be open-minded to my theory, to be open-minded to his theory, as we will likely be picking each other apart. He's picking apart integral theory. I'm picking apart non-reductionism. The things that I'm going to talk about in my last video on the pros and cons of integral, and in this one, are all the things I disagree with, all right? And if we talk, you know, after genuinely saying how fond we are of one another and how much we have in common, this will be the main focus of the things we talk about, is the things we don't have in common. Because to both of us, it's very important to solidify a sort of community of level 7, to be real clear on what all these words mean and really moderate the dialogue. Both of us consider ourselves somewhat in that role to at least, I'm not saying I'm anybody doing anything, but what I'm doing is I'm commenting on the dialogue. I'm responding to the dialogue that's taking place in integral theory to the best of my ability. He does more work on this stuff, straight up. But the thing, the topic when you're rebranding integral and rejecting integral theory and the integral theory community, the main thing that an integral theory guy is, I'm more of a purist. the main thing we're going to talk about is that difference of opinion. So that's unfortunate, and that's just, you know, how debate goes. If you're a creationist and I'm an evolutionist, that's going to be what we talk about. If we're both evolutionists, we're going to talk about a more specific subtopic of evolution. David and I are both level 7 integral thinkers, integral developers, whatever you want to call it. Teal meme, yellow meme, who cares? Integrative level of consciousness. Whatever works for the most people with all their various learning styles and levels that they're at and lines, everything. Whatever people stick to is the thing. So I'm accreting a little bit more to the levels, and I'm finding that the YouTube culture does too. They like level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Maybe that says bad things about us, but we seem to like the numbers. So I have some like really, really, really main, because as I'm sitting here agreeing with him and liking him, it just screams, it bleeds through like every 10 seconds or so. There's something that's just like, what? Not that hard, but just enough that it's like, if I were to make a video with him or talk with him, these would be the things I'd be focused on. David and I have talked on Reddit, and we've said like, yeah, let's get in touch, let's do a debate or something. And it just kind of hasn't happened. Yeah, like I said, I think that we genuinely don't like the idea of trashing each other's work. I think that's a big part of it. And I think if we get together, the discussion won't really go that way. I think it'll go that way for a minute, but I don't think it'll generally, I think we're both so darn agreeable, and very much like at a certain point, both of us would be like, okay, I get what you mean, so let's move on, you know, that kind of thing. So I mean, I hope that wouldn't disappoint people who like culture today. But okay, these core criticisms here. I would say in your model, I believe, let me just try and lay this out. You have levels, lines, types, states, quadrants, and modes. I believe. It's all the same things, except you also have modes. So we can talk about modes. Cool. Good. I like modes. It's a cool thing. And I don't have any ideological or theoretical problem with modes as a concept. Modes are roles. It is exactly like it sounds. That theory, I guess we're talking about it now, that theory comes from Wilbur, comes from Jung too. It comes from a lot of places, but it's just a persona. You have sub-personas, and they're very specific characters, and they might be roles that you do, like a worker, a husband, or a father, or a widow baby. It could be all sorts of, a debater. How about that? There's all sorts of roles you can go into. In my opinion, just my mild opinion, it's sort of like a combination of states that you deliberately enter or types that you deliberately enter. You know, it could be the acting line of development. So there's a lot of ways that you can just explain that already with integral. But I would argue that it's a good addition for the first tier because it's really the focus of the first tier. What role do I play to best optimize for the values that I have now? In Wilbur's model, so this is not a thing that Wilbur doesn't treat or anything. The idea of the persona is that, yeah, as you are a conscious being, you will be personas. You will play roles, and you will have to play them well. And this is a very low level of development. This is like coming from level 4, maybe. Level 4 would probably be the best point to discuss like roles and everything. And to really gain insight about what modes you're in, whether that's emotional modes, which I would call kind of states, or like modes of operation, you know, like I'm the inventory guy. So I have to be really like punctual. I have to know the numbers. I have to be quick about things. I got to be strong, and I have to put in long hours. I'm the inventory guy. I got to do math well, you know, I got to know spreadsheets. So yeah, I'm the inventory guy. So, you know, while I play that role, as you get better and better at your job, you kind of play that role more and more naturally. You go through a progression of levels in your ability to play roles, which are personas. That's not who you really are. As you're playing that role, you're self-aware of how cheesy you're being or how effective you're being. So the ego is a master level of your consciousness to your personas that you're playing. And his concept of the persona also includes this idea of shadow. So there are things that you're not deliberately doing that are being expressed through your roles that you're playing, through the role that you're being at any given time. So not at all incompatible with integral. It's totally in integral, but it's not included in their actual visual model. And it's considered a concept that applies to kind of the lower stages of development, especially as we get to the higher levels and we want to reorder our lower levels and examine our persona and shadows to see if they're effective from this higher level, this vision logic or psyche-centric level of development. David uses vision logic, I would say. That's why he's interested in this. That's why it's what he does with his life. He's level 7. And his comments on metamodernism, I haven't done as much work on metamodernism, but his criticisms of it are pretty good. I think they're pretty good criticisms. there seems to be a really internet culture style to it, and there's really a rejection of any claims to like validity or authority. So great, you're going to get people screaming, you're going to get the most exciting, flashy, enlightened guru, whatever, but there's not a lot of pressure in the metamodern community to say like, no. This guy over here, this person knows what's up, and all these other guys, they're just like saying random poetic crap. There's none of that going on in the metamodern. I mean, David and I would criticize this very differently, but I think essentially he's saying that the validity of metamodern is even more kind of wishy-washy than the validity of integral theory, or it's wishy-washy in a different way. It's spreading these ideas, but it might be spreading them in a way that's not quite up to the standards of like what we're seeing in the model and the value of it. I would agree with him on that. And again, I love the metamodern movement. I think it's a great thing. It's a way of popularizing the very thing that I'm talking about that I think is really important to popularize and legitimize. So I love it. But the general sense I've gotten from people who were really into it and people who recommended it to me and talk about it with me and watching some metamodern branded content, yeah, that was the sense that I got, that there's like no need to have any legitimacy as you talk about like enlightenment and meditative state practice and stuff like that. And that is a carryover into internet age of the new age anti-validity thing, where I don't know if this lady is just like someone's sick grandma or some sort of like actual healer, but she's saying stuff about God and spirit and your body and peace, and I don't know the difference. Who cares? Or like a video like, okay, I'm using Unthink Me's. This doesn't exist, but I don't think. I'm using Unthink Me's levels of consciousness. Now watch me enter stage 12. I'm at stage 12 now. I am God in the universe. How would you know? How would you know? Maybe I really did that. You wouldn't really know. I mean, if you were at that stage, I mean, you develop credentials as you develop familiarity with it and the kind of things that you do at that level, you would kind of get, okay, this is actually coming from Adam's ego, like wanting to be special. Okay. Now here's where he and I really differ. Some of those people, I believe, are just straight up having these experiences and reporting them to the public with their own misunderstandings of them. I would say that David doesn't really... in David's model, he has what he calls trained states. He mentions it. He hasn't really gone into depth, but yeah, he has psychic, subtle, causal, trained states. And it seems to me that integral theory is entirely inspired by them, by that and an exhaustive review of the history of thought. And integral discusses them all the time. Transcendental states of consciousness. The states that Ken Wilber uses in his model, as opposed to David's, is to suggest that those 4 categories, psychic, subtle, causal, non-dual, or 3, or whatever you want, but those basic categories are fundamental divisions in very, very core lenses through which people perceive reality. That is to say, right now, you are not experiencing those states because you're experiencing this state. So if you don't experience those states the way that you do this one, consciously aware, here, right now, present, being, if you're not going into a dream state that way, you don't remember that, you don't know about that, and if you're not going into a fully stopped state where you're not being a person, you're not thinking, there's nothing going on that generates the illusion of being a person making choices. It is just the fact of being here, being am. What does the word am mean? That's what it means, is consciousness. And this is true the whole time, whenever experience is occurring. That is not poetic. That is not mystical nonsense. It's an observation about reality. But until you've had those experiences, you can't tell the difference between poetry and wishful thinking and mythology and magical thinking and this experience that reveals a thing that can't be said in words to the experience having it, the consciousness, which is your true nature and always has been. It's not an analogy and it's not a reference to someone else. I'm talking about this. We are doing gross realm lens right now. We can't see the other lenses. But if you develop your ability to see through those lenses, you can then bring that information back here, and it's useful. So those are all points that I'd have to establish moving forward. But what you're trying to do with your states module is to say, okay, yeah, there's this kind of like somewhat important category called trained states, and you have like psychic, subtle, causal, non-dual, and yeah, those are modes. Those are yeah, I would say modes. I think you're using them like modes. Like, oh yeah, you can go into that state, you can be in that state, and that's what's up. It's like being drunk, it's like getting high, whatever. What isn't coming through at all is that those states fundamentally change the same sorts of things that levels change. What you think you are, what you think reality is, what you think life is, what you think a dream is, what you think the gross realm is. And the way that you talk about it, to me, strongly suggests you have never had any of those trained state experiences. Totally fine. You're like everyone else in the world practically. You haven't had those states with self-aware reflection that you're having the state and an ability later to go, yeah, I had that state. Oh, okay. What did that reveal to me? Now I'm back in gross realm and I'm postulating on what it might have been. But in the state, I can talk to you and tell you what the state is, and it won't make any darn sense to you. It'll seem the same thing as mystical jargon, because the people who wrote that mystical jargon in level 3, they were having those mystical states too. And they were saying other mystical jargon that points toward what I'm talking about but cannot communicate it. As you go up the levels, you get better and better at communicating to any other consciousness. So we're getting better and better at describing this thing, this fact about nature and reality. And in Ken Wilber's work, the primary difference between integral theory and non-reductionism is that Ken Wilber's theory includes revelations of state practice into his model of reality, because he realizes you have that state, you turn it into a permanent structure, and now you've created a structure of conceptualizing reality. But you haven't really created it, but you've discovered an entirely different perspective on reality that's true and real. And none of that makes sense if you haven't had the experience. It's just words. It's word salad. It doesn't make any sense. I'm just pointing to something. You haven't had the experience, and it's not a mystery. You meditate for a long time. It's kind of hard. It's like you're a musician. It's like that. Like, how long does it take to go up on stage and play an awesome concert? It takes a super long time. But if people are telling you that that's a thing you can do, and you can watch people have concerts, you might, if you're open-minded, if you're not reductionistic about what you're doing, you might look at that and say, I wonder why so many people are so committed to that. Is it just level 4? Are they just crazy, like self-abusive weirdos that have some mythological view about reality? They think they have to like punish themselves or escape from it into something imaginary. It is so much bigger than that. And you acknowledge the existence of those states. You just don't understand the ways in which Ken Wilber's work includes that information and spreads that information, higher level even information than level 7. So your model rejects that, but unfortunately it still includes a lot of stuff that references that. Quadrants and states reference that, like specifically, that's what those mean in Wilber's model. So you're using them very differently, which is fine. I don't know what really the practical usage of trained states are in your model if your model isn't informed by them and you disagree with their existence and think they're level 4. To comment on that again, Ken Wilber invented this concept of the pre-trans fallacy, which you accuse him of. Ken Wilber invented this concept and coined it the pre-trans fallacy. It had existed before, but Ken Wilber popularized it, and that's why you and I are talking about it, because he coined it for you and I. The pre-trans fallacy refers specifically to what you are doing, which is saying that transcendental states of consciousness are the same thing as level 2 magical, mystical, superstitious thinking. Because you haven't had those states, I don't even think you would claim to, you're saying they're unreal because they aren't in your reality. So to you, they look just the same as bullshit that little kids and crazy old cat ladies say. You don't know the difference. That's the pre-trans fallacy. Just like someone who's strictly rational doesn't understand. Like, what is post-rational? That just means irrational. It's just stupid. What are you talking about? Everyone who says anything that doesn't specifically refer to a scientific fact is a superstitious, childish idiot. No, that's one lens through which you can see reality. Now you're at level 6, right? Level 7 realizes that there's an order to those lenses themselves. So you're there. You're doing that. You're perfect there. And this gets into, okay, so another part of your, one of the things you're refuting is you're saying, I had an issue with how I was understanding dreaming and REM as states. And I decided REM, I don't remember which you decided, but one or the other was the correct word for the state, and they're redundant. They are the interior and exterior quadrant of the same thing. A dream state is what's happening in my reality. REM is what's happening in that physical body that I am. They're both, yes, they're redundant because they're the same thing, because they're both true as quadrant perspectives on the same experience. And if you're there, conscious, awake, aware, alert, just like you are right now, you're having a subtle state experience, which I would say is kind of the tip of the iceberg of subtle state experiences. It's a very minor state experience. The real ones are when you're coming from gross to subtle in the waking state, from the waking state. So again, you include quadrants, you say internals and externals, individuals and collectives, but you're not assigning reality to the left-hand quadrants, it seems like, or at least the upper left. It's like the upper left is not real to you. Subjectivity isn't real. Free will isn't real. As though, look, if you're saying, okay, so subjectivity, right? In reality right now, asking me, am I having an experience of something? Certainly I am. In fact, that's kind of all I know. I'm having an experience of what? Well, it seems like the experience is of something that I'm not making up. It's something external to me. It's the world, the universe, my room, my body, my hallucinations, whatever. And I don't know, I can never know that objective reality from this experience of consciousness, being consciousness. So actually, consciousness is real, and objective reality is something I'm imagining through my interactions with something. This is all history of philosophy stuff. And the point of the quadrants, the point of Ken Wilber's examination of this, is that they're both completely true. Subjectivity and objectivity both exist. Left-hand quadrants, right-hand quadrants. Two different ways of seeing the same thing. REM in the body, theta brainwaves in the brain, dream state in the first-hand experience of it. Same thing. They can't not co-emerge. They have to emerge together, because they're all the same thing, and we're just seeing them from the inside or the outside. That's what quadrants means, and I think you get that, but you make arguments like, oh, free will's fake, free will's imaginary, it's not real. Well, okay, can I make a decision and then do it? And you're saying it's not real? Isn't that what we all do all the time? Isn't that the only thing we really actually know? Yeah, but it's an illusion. It's generated by the universe calculator. You're imagining from your state of subjective consciousness. And I suspect you're right. I suspect that's actually true. I suspect that every single thing I do is calculated by this universe and this body calculator, by this brain calculator. It's all happening because things are falling, because matter attracts matter, heat dissipates. That is a reductionistic argument for what's going on right now. The quadrants reduce that reductionism by saying that clearly, no matter what's happening and when and who you are and what's going on, there is a conscious experience of something. There is an internal and an external to reality, always. And that even though you're only aware of your personal reality right now, that's all you can know, we have strong suspicion, just like we know there's an objective reality, an objective world in the right-hand quadrants. It seems really, really safe to assume that everyone else is having a conscious experience just like me. They're all doing the same thing I'm doing. So it'd be really weird if I'm the only one that's actually having a conscious experience of reality and has free will and subjectivity. That'd be really weird. The word real is a meaningless word. It's a word that begs the question of the quadrants. I don't know, does that go over your head, or do you find it disagreeable? Because I feel like you include the quadrants in your model, but you don't understand like what they are or what they mean. That's just what I'm getting from what I'm seeing. You're probably using them for some practical reason, some coaching reason, and they make sense in that context. Sure, that's a great usage of the quadrants, but the real main thing to get is that reality, this reality, the one, has the experience that's occurring and the experience of something that's occurring. And that's never, ever, ever not true, it would seem. I mean, if you want to prove it wrong, the best way, I'm just saying, the best way to do that is through trained state practice, in which you will realize eventually, not now, you can't really get this, but through those state training, you'll realize that the quadrants themselves are only lenses through which consciousness is perceiving reality. That's the real value of the quadrants and their relevance to integral theory. Yes, if we're talking about how should I live a better life, I should consider my internal subjective position. I should consider the cultural wave of everything and various waves. I should consider the social systems. I should consider the immediate behavioral and environmental and physical factors, all four quadrants to a certain issue. But the quadrants concept itself is not, well, I guess in your model, it's just a practical tool to be used and it's really valuable. But I don't think you're getting the philosophical significance. This is an intrinsic fact about existence, reality, and experience. It's a fundamental philosophical axiom. So I think that you're taking the same model and just saying like, hey, these concepts can be used for stuff. But I don't know if you're getting that this is a map of reality itself. And I don't really know if you can get that at a simply vision logic ability stage. Maybe you can't get that without having some trained state practice. And I will say too, people who have gone all the way to the end of trained state practice to the non-dual constant state of consciousness, extremely, extremely, extremely rare people. I mean, people that I wouldn't have access to. And so I should imagine if I got to that level, I would be coming out here telling you something totally different. So my belief is that I'm open to that. Maybe someday I'll come out here and say something that sounds super green meme, super duper ultra green meme to you. And that would be a statement from a sort of messianic perspective. But I don't know that. I haven't been there. I've been up to some of the trained states, and I come back here informed by them. It's very clear to me that Wilber did things very deliberately and on purpose that you're not appreciating. That this is indeed a tool for coaching and self-work and therapy and growth and analyzing things. And it is a map to enlightenment. It is a map of reality itself, this one that you're experiencing now, and all of it is included in Ken Wilber's integral theory. That's the claim. It's a theory of everything. Non-reductionism, I haven't seen, maybe you claim it's a theory of everything, but I think that a theory of everything is fundamentally non-reductionistic, and I think that integral theory is the most non-reductionistic thing I've ever seen in thought. And I think that non-reductionism removes some of what integral theory has accomplished by being reductionistic towards state realization and state revelations, and not being able to parse the difference between a genuine state communicator and someone who's just pretending to be a guru or whatever. And that's a real problem that we all have. It's not necessarily a criticism, but I think that I have a real responsibility to people who are keeping up with all this stuff and are curious about it to say, well, here's one person's opinion, and I'm claiming I'm informed by state practice, and I'm saying that the most non-reductionistic position would not totally deny and fail to account for the transcendental state experience and what it means about being human and reality and purpose and philosophy. Okay, long story short, primary criticism, I think that you're unknowingly including things from Ken Wilber's work that aren't relevant to the work you're doing, but you're just including them because it's Ken Wilber's idea, and you don't really care why Ken Wilber included them or made his map the way he did. You're just taking that map and using it as a tool for a purpose, which is totally fine. It's an open source model. But then you make all these claims and criticisms against Ken Wilber and about Ken Wilber's philosophy and his theory, and you call his ideas level 4, even though they're clearly level 7 at least. And you call his views mystical, superstitious, level 4, whatever, and somehow all these other people are also just mystical, superstitious. Okay, now you're not wrong about people who post on forums, people who exist in integral theory circles. Yeah, of course, there's a lot of poetry, there's a lot of like mystical garbage, there's a lot of like people who have had no state experience making claims about it. I would completely agree with you in that context. It's like impossible to tell the difference. So I just give them the benefit of the doubt and I check it out. And maybe if things develop for a long time, I'll actually discover, wow, this person actually has had state experiences. And I find that it's pretty obvious pretty quickly. There are ways to tell, and it's because it's familiar to you if you've had these states. You're like, oh, there's that thing. They wouldn't know about that if they didn't really know about states. But maybe they've read tons and tons of books about it and heard tons and tons of talks about it, so maybe they're mimicking. How would you know? How do you know if someone's actually green meme or if they're amber meme, paid by their government to perfectly mimic the behavior of green meme or whatever? Can't know. We can't know the inside of someone else, but we can look for cues and clues. Just basically, if you don't have experience with those states, there's nothing wrong with that, but you're not competent to determine who else has had them. And yes, from your perspective, from the pre-trans fallacy, you will see the things that mystical gurus who are actually competent, you will see the things that they say as exactly the same as all the wackos running around repeating crap that they've read or in New Age books or in the Bible or wherever, just repeating crap. They don't know what it means. They don't care what it means. They like to shoot their guns, and integral theory. Yeah, I know all about that. I'm the integral theory guy. I love it. But, I hate being inclusive. I hate including all the possible ideas that one could include. I don't really believe that we should know more about reality or be more conscious. That's fake. That's not real, obviously, because it's internally inconsistent. So what would I recommend to David moving forward? Absolutely nothing. David's doing everything right. He's great. Everything's perfect. His theory's great. I'm criticizing his theory for his own development of his theory if he likes, as my own 2 cents about it, which he can reject, and that would be totally understandable. He seems to reject the position that I'm forwarding here, and that's perfectly cool. That's perfectly cool, and I hope his theory succeeds because it's teaching up to level 7. I think we both agree it's teaching up to level 7, so great. That's a good thing to do. Teach people up to level 5 for all that's a great thing too. Teach people up to level 5. Great. Man, if you teach people up to level 12, that's really, really, really valuable. So I wouldn't deny that. I acknowledge that. And I wouldn't be drilling down on this so hard, but so you talk so much about like how you are the first thing that doesn't exclude perspectives, and you have this certain like way of seeing things and understanding things, and it's all like coming partially from Ken Wilber, but partially denying Ken Wilber. So it's this really weird like Frankenstein hobbling. There was one thing that you talked about in one of your discussion videos, informing AI with metamodernism. And really, like, I just go on ChatGPT and it stores in its memory that I'm into integral theory, and that's sufficient. It's like an expert on integral theory, and it knows whenever I ask a question in my account, it knows that I want it to give an integral answer, even if it's not even relevant. It'll know that I'm into integral theory. So I think we're there with that. You can just kind of tell it, hey, remember that I'm really into metamodernism and integral theory, and I basically think about everything that way. And if you're comfortable with GPT having memory or whatever, and you use it that way, it'll do that automatically. This is not like this is not a difficult thing to do. It's not like a future technology. You can manually edit GPT's prompt that it gives itself. You can't edit its primary self prompt that is provided by the company and keeps them safe. But in the API, you can give it a sub prompt that will make it who it is, what it knows, what it looks at, what it can do. That's doable right now, and it's awesome. Let's get that on lockdown. I honestly feel like it really, AI is super into integral theory, and it's super aware of it, and it's super aware of these topics, and it's interested in them, I would say, just from what I've seen. Another position I find counter to the integral theory position is that there's this position stated on therapy that like therapy is this green meme thing that you go and you talk about your feelings to someone and they listen to you, and it's just a way to like waste time and it doesn't do anything. It doesn't accomplish anything. This might be true at certain levels, and especially if you're healthy and you're already good. It might just be like, well, why am I wasting this time? I can just go talk to a friend. And I think that's a very anti-scientific understanding of therapy, even though like I personally, that's kind of what I'm finding in therapy at myself, and I know it's a lot of people do, but it's an anti-scientific position. Therapy is effective, in scientific terms. People get diagnosed with things, they do therapy, it reduces the symptoms of those things. It does. That's the science. That's known. But why it does that, how it does that, is it just because they get to whine and be a baby, or is it because someone else is watching them take personal responsibility for their issues and being a sounding board for your trauma and pathology and things that other people wouldn't want to endure in your presence, but things that you'd really like to get out? Does that do nothing for evolution, for your personal growth? It might not do what you want it to do, but the science says it does do things that help with our problems, and it probably won't grow you up significantly to be in therapy your whole life. It might get you a stage or two if you're just using an ordinary old therapist. The Wilbur position is that that's shadow work. That's working on things that you aren't able to express or acknowledge in yourself, that you're afraid of, and it's bringing them out into the light with another person present. Not all therapy goes that way, but that's from the integral theory perspective, that's kind of what therapy does and how it's useful, and it is considered very useful. But yeah, it's a working on your script, it's working on your ego. It's work on your ego. Working with shadow, clearing up shadow, working on your ego. It won't get you past there. It won't get you up to vision logic. Your therapist knows nothing about vision logic, most likely. But that's not the problem that most people who go to therapy have. They have physical issues that cause them to have terrible moods or be impossible to work with, or do criminal things that they later look back on and regret, or maybe they don't regret it, you know. Therapy can be very useful in these cases. Otherwise, it really wouldn't be recommended, and it wouldn't be, like, you know, paid for and promoted. Integral's really quick to point out there's all different types of theories, and those need to be categorized a lot better by integral theory. If all you're saying is you could do a superior sort of therapy with non-reductionism or integral theory, yeah, I'd agree with that. I think that therapy being integrally informed would take us a long way, because therapy is not as effective as we would like it to be. We would love if it actually completely solved, like, I have depression, go to therapy, the depression's gone. Someone dumped me 2 months later, therapy, I'm totally happy. That would be a way better thing, but it's not to say that therapy is useless. It's just that it only works for certain things to certain extents. But it really sounded like in your video, you were completely dismissing therapy as like bullshit, that level 6 is like lying to itself and pretending something's happening. And you'd probably have that same view of Tai Chi and yoga, I'm assuming. You describe REM dream state, like, I think you're not understanding that in that state you're a different entity, and the way that everything works and everything is entirely different. I think that you see dreams as poetic fantasies. I don't think that's a complete understanding of dreams and what they are. And you say, you know, okay, the subtle state is dreaming. Not exactly. Dreaming is a subtle state, but when I say subtle state, I'm not really referring to dreaming per se. Generally, when we dream, when we talk about dreaming, we're talking about an unconscious subtle state, where the subtle state is happening and you're not really awake, alert, or aware in that state. And then we have this word lucid dreaming that's just come out in the last like 40 years. You know, it's a pretty recent thing that has become commonplace and understood. It used to be like, no, that's not real. Of course, people have been doing it for millennia, but lucid dreaming is an increase in the feeling you have right now that I'm here, I'm alert, I'm conscious, I'm a thought process, I can understand this, I have power here, I can do things. Just like that in the dream world. So you have more consciousness being brought into a subtle state, whereas before you were just completely unconscious, like almost all people are. So lucid dreamer is fairly common nowadays. A lot of people have intense dreams, lucid dreams, and that just means they have this very, very, very limited window to access the subtle realm, to see a subtle state. And they're generally not nearly conscious enough that they would understand what it means or the significance of it. If you're not gifted or talented or whatever, it takes a long time to have a genuine subtle state where you're actually fully in a subtle state in a meditation posture. And that is nothing like having a dream. It is so mind-blowing and crazy, because you're just sitting there. And it's not surprising at this point because you've worked on it for a long time, but you're just sitting there and your body stops being there. You stop feeling it, you stop knowing it, you stop seeing it. It stops being there, and you're still looking at what is. Nothing's changed. You're just sitting here looking at what is, and everything that you're constructing around you, all the objects that you're imagining are there, just all that stuff that's just a thought process and nothing else. You just let that dissolve. And now there's consciousness just looking, not creating, not manifesting, but looking at what is. And what is the mind's creation of reality, is a manifestation of imagination. So in the gross realm, we've focused that to this specific mode of functioning, the specific state of consciousness, the ordinary waking normal state of consciousness, that realm of consciousness. We're focused in so hard to allow us to function as a body and socially in the world to get things done. We do this really specific set of things with our mind that constrict it and don't allow it to actually see the entirety of reality. But the first step toward realizing what reality is you get into that subtle state and you see that not only in my dream is some mysterious thing inside of me generating the world around me, but in my actual waking life, the world that I'm experiencing around me and the experiences that I'm having with other people are being imagined by us into being by our linguistic, mythological, magical minds. That's all being articulated and coordinated into this gross realm experience of being an ego. But in this gross realm, I can sit and relax and stop doing that, but I keep doing the thing where I'm awake, alert, and aware. And the universe, the true secrets of life and the universe are revealed to us. The origin of all of this, the consciousness that is in me, the subject versus object duality, mortality. All of this stuff is resolved in a way that you can't imagine if you haven't had the state of this moment right now transforming into eternal nothing. And it's glorious. You love it. It's heaven. Is that poetry? No, I'm talking about the experience that you have in that state. Am I wrong? Maybe. That's up to the audience. Get to that state and tell me whether I'm wrong or right. So then how do we know if you're wrong or right now? So this is no different than science in many ways, right? Peer review. But if you're making claims about it with no experience with it, you haven't even tried significantly, why even bother? It's just, why even chime in on it, you know? That's what I see you doing in your work, and there's nothing wrong with it. You just are saying, yeah, okay, why bother with it? I'm going to include Ken Wilber's work, but I'm going to basically say as little as possible about this aspect of it once I establish that I disagree with it, and just move forward with my reality that's a gross realm reality that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Just know already, for no reason, I already know that all that stuff is just lies and poetry and mythology and wrong. All that stuff that all those people said that influenced all of our civilization since the dawn of time. I know better than that because I made it up to level 7. I got this far. I know more than everyone else. Basically, I'm the man. I know everything. I've never had any of those states. Never really tried. But I'm going to say whether they're real or not. I'm going to say whether what Adam's saying is true or false. That makes no sense to me. And so I assume it's as simple as that. If someone is at level 7 and they've had no state experience, they wouldn't have any issue with scrapping all those parts of integral theory and moving on with the rest of integral theory as a philosophy and as a tool set. But that is very frustrating for those of us who see in Ken Wilber's work more than just the level 7, who see the state thing as really important realization and the quadrant thing as a really important, to bring into every part of your philosophy. It's frustrating for us to see a thing calling itself non-reductionism reducing reality to the gross realm and claiming that we're all poets and making stuff up and jockeying for image and believing in mythology and magic. Because a very, 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 very tiny fraction of us aren't doing that. And I'm not mad because how could I possibly be mad? I felt the same way until I had the experience. I'm just trying to represent that. And I mean, you don't have to tell me about the fake ones, the hucksters. I mean, yes, it's very commonplace. It would be. According to integral theory, obviously, it would be a very common thing to fake that. But baby in bathwater, as has been stated many times, pre-trans fallacy, just like everyone's doing to you at level 7, saying, oh no, that's just green meme. Oh no, that's a weird cult thing. They're reducing you to lower levels, pre-trans fallacy. But you're doing it too. Forgivably, because that's where you're at. You're at level 7. Forgivably. Everyone at level 7 can have this perspective, and it's not incoherent. It makes perfect sense. Obviously, there are business, political uses. There's all sorts of uses for this, but I think that a lot of us got drawn into this theory for the purpose of resolving, reaching our full potential, resolving our trauma, becoming more spiritual, becoming enlightened. A lot of us are drawn to it for that purpose. And what we love about integral theory is it's so different from all other spiritual thingamajigs we've ever seen because it is straightforward and methodical and precise, and it uses a mind that's philosophically capable, academically capable, and a really great writer. What we love about the spirituality of integral theory is that it's unlike any other spirituality we've ever seen before, because it's like the spirituality that we're experiencing as a minority of people who are experiencing this reality. And we see this book where a guy's talking about the very thing that we've been like, what the hell's going on? Am I crazy? There's lots and lots and lots and lots of books that could be that book that makes you feel that way, that where you see that reflection of the state of consciousness, the transcendental realm. But I'm arguing, and I think a lot of integral theory people would argue, one of the most important and valuable things about Ken Wilber's work is that it does point you in the direction of a genuinely true, real, reasonable, rational, sensitive spirituality that has no cult, has no authority, has no leadership. It's just a philosophical way of understanding reality that culminates in enlightenment if you choose to go in that direction. And that's a really valuable and important contribution made by integral theory that I would never, never want to get rid of. It is an extremely significant fact for level 7 and for all of us at level 7. This should be accepted and celebrated as part of the human experience, that we can have transcendental states of consciousness and that there's a pretty clear path to it. It's very difficult, but there's a clear path to it. And if you're not going to give that the benefit of the doubt and try it, or if I don't know, maybe you just haven't had any luck with it, then again, I just find it kind of arrogant to dismiss it out of hand as just like, oh, well, clearly that person who dedicated their life to meditation for 20 years wasn't serious. They weren't intellectually serious or rigorous with what they were doing with that experiment. Gosh, if I'd give anyone the benefit of the doubt, it would probably be someone like that. And then they write this whole book about what they did and how it works and what they, yeah, forget about that. It's some crazy guy who sat there for 20 years, lazy. Poetry is the art of using language. That's all, just the art of using language. So yes, Green Meme's good at poetry. The highest levels are great at poetry, usually, if that's a thing they've looked at much. You know, at level 3, poetry is something silly that rhymes. At level 2 and 3, poetry is a thing that arises by people sitting around, you know, some festival or some fire, repeating the words of the story that we tell. Just because that's the thing you do. That was poetry. That's where poetry comes from. It evolved into being. That's reductionistic, though, to describe the entire literary tradition of mystical writing and to say that they're all equivalent, as though there's no hierarchy of the value of mystical writings. That's very reductionistic. So, okay, let's bring in science to this question. Am I the mind of God experiencing itself? Prove that true or false, science. Okay, what does I mean? What does am mean? What does God mean? What does mind mean? Every single one of these words. And is that useful to science? They don't think so. They wouldn't imagine so. Doesn't seem like seems like there's too many hidden variables here. But for some reason, you have these trained state experiences and you come back here to a non-trained state and you say, I am the mind of God experiencing itself. And they lock you up and they throw rocks at you because you're most likely a level 3 liar trying to get ahead. Level 5 liar, level 6 liar, whatever. And that's just so unfortunate. And it sucks to see when you hold that torch, when you're the beacon, when you've had the state, when you're sharing the state, and you know that everyone is going to think you're a liar and most likely be right. That's an unfortunate, that could use a little sympathy and compassion. What if that was true? What if that was actually true? 25 people ever attained enlightenment. They talked about it. 7,000 people claimed they did. They talked about it. Now tell the difference. Who's imitating who? Who's lying? Who made it all up? That's what we're doing. That's what we're not just rejecting all of them because we have a prior assumption. We're looking at it. So whoever's looking at it is going to have to actually try the experiment that those people tried to see if it actually radically changes the way you experience reality, or if it does nothing and you just go out and lie about it and make a bunch of money. Great experiment. But do the experiment before you tell us the results. You know, you say in your video, there was a line and I found it really agreeable. You say teal meme, actually you say yellow meme, I believe, integral, takes like 10 years from when you first discover it and find it compelling to actually make it like your actual person. When you're actually at that stage realistically to everyone, clearly, level 7. About 10 years. So it's clearly possible for us to extend that leniency because you're at that level, and now you're like, well, yeah, everybody just take 10 years, get this down. Yeah, it's a big ask, and it's just the same ask from states. I spent my entire life getting off the wheel, and I'm saying you don't even have to. I'm just telling you what happened. No, I don't want to spend my time doing that, and I don't believe you. Very frustrating when you're level 7 looking at level 5 telling you you're wrong. You didn't put any work in. Your 10 years were for nothing. Pre-trans fallacy. Sucks. Your spirituality, as described, is sacred naturalism. I describe this, I've described it in several places, not by those words, but by a description of what it is. That's a level 5 spirituality. You call it atheist or agnostic or Christian, but at level 5, the rational mind says, clearly there's something just divine going on here. And you know what? I think it's just the fact of what is. That I get to wake up in the morning. That I get to see children. That the sun comes out. What a miracle. I don't need any beliefs to justify that. This is a dang miracle. Wonderful. That's level 5 spirituality. Spirituality through the level 5 lens. Beautiful. Sacred naturalism. And same level 6 generally will take that and some others and start to integrate them together and start to kind of see that there's other perspectives on it and that these could actually be relevant to you. But just having a philosophy of sacred naturalism may or may not lead to you having transcendental states in the context of sacred naturalism. I wonder if you do. I don't know if you do. But I'm assuming that that isn't part of what you do with your spiritual beliefs because level 5 and level 6 don't generally do any practice with their spiritual beliefs. They just kind of believe them and, try to talk about them critically and think about them with others and use them as a sort of motivational guidepost. But yeah, you could go out in the woods and just lay on the ground, become the trees, become the passing clouds, dissolve. Now, is this green meme poetry? It would be if I'm not talking literally. It would be if I'm describing feeling good in the sun in a metaphorical way. But no, I'm saying like while you're laying there on the ground, you realize that you're not that body. You're the whole thing. You're the grass. You're the trees. You're those birds making calls. You're the air. There's no reason why you should select one thing that you are and aren't. That's just a mental construct. But in this experience, we have all sorts of things, and all of it is the experience that you're having, which is who you are. That's the psyche level. That's the psychic experience. Now, yes, integral theory people will claim to have paranormal powers at the psychic level. I think a lot of them are misunderstanding what the psychic level is. It's just an understanding about the nature of reality. It is only a matter of convention and training that I consider myself this person, and I don't get to enjoy the experience of being this whole thing. This beautiful grand symphony. This poetry. But if you only see the poetry, you're missing what it's pointing to. And I think that's where we're going to be hung up, possibly indefinitely. I mean, this is going to be a weird video, right? Like, people probably either have seen my videos or seen your videos, and then I'm going to sit here and talk as though people know both of us. It's not very realistic. But yeah, so like a main thread in your thing is like, well, Wilbur won't debate you. Wilbur won't respond to Beck. Wilbur won't respond to authorities and academic experts and authors of books about him. Things like that. Valid criticisms, totally legit, reasonable criticisms. And you talk in another place about skillful time management. Just like, if something's not going to advance my mission in life, I don't have any duty to respond to it. And I feel like it's the same thing. Who's yelling at me if I don't respond to you? And who's yelling at you if you don't respond to me? It's not about that. If you respond to me, it's a choice that you're making with your time because it's worth your time to do. Now, I don't find Wilbur's position unsympathetic in not going to great lengths to pacify the demands of his fans and saying, hey, Wilbur, I think like 35% of your theory is wrong because the very fallacy that you coined called pre-trans fallacy, because you're actually at a mythological level. Yeah, I could see why he would not really take that seriously. I do. I'll take that seriously. I'll discuss that. I'm some dipshit. I'm not Ken Wilber who came up with the theory you use. I'm another appropriator of the theory who thinks he gets it. As is Ken Wilber, right? We all are. That's what we're up to. Great. So like the dumbest thing we could possibly do is like pretend we're not all on the same side here at level 7. And to not bear it with like good humor and humility as level 7 would. Yeah, just nobody cares anywhere. Nobody at all cares. But just my 2 cents on that is I love doing it this way. This is fun. I like doing video responses. I would absolutely welcome you for a discussion. You've told me, yeah, just give you a call. I hope to call you sometime. There's a lot of people on my list of people to call, you know. I think you and I are in different positions because I'm just a YouTuber who's out here saying like, hey, I love having conversations, and if you want to debate about anything, I'm down. I mean, I got some time this weekend. And you are an authority and representative of a brand, you know, of integral theory, the style derived from integral theory, your business. So you and I are in different positions. And in my opinion, you know, if as many people are watching me as are watching you, then I think, yeah, it would be very reasonable for us to have this. I can't imagine that it would be like a waste of either of our time. I think it's a kind of an important discussion. It's like, okay, you got 2 people doing something that looks kind of looks similar and they're disagreeing with each other. You know, we'd be the perfect people to kind of hash that out. But, you know, really unlike me and somewhat unlike Wilbur, you and your content are saying like, I'm at least for now, I'm the guy here. This is the theory that I curate, that I'm looking for, you know, I'm where the bar stops with authority here. Cool. I'm glad someone's willing to do that. I hope more people start doing that. So now that authority can be challenged. Unlike me, who's a cuck, fake secret agent, just like, hey, this would be a cool thing to be. I have actually claimed that I'm probably wrong about anything and you should be totally suspicious of me, but I'm going to do my best to convince everybody just by talking to you. I want to convince you of the things that I think are really important to believe in. That's my authority. It's none. It's I say so. That's what makes what I'm saying true. And I put a lot of work into what I say. But if I'm to say, hey, guess what? Wilbur's time is done. I'm the integral theory guy now. The way I present altitudes is the official way. Or even if I call it, you know, hey, I'm Mick integral, you know, you got to check out my Mick levels and my Mick states. If I want to do that, now I'm super, super accountable. If I'm making money on that, and if it is derivative of Wilbur's work, now I'm super accountable to all the things that I leave behind when I adapt that work. And I'm actually accountable, and I owe credit to the creator of that work, as opposed to focusing more on the fact that he assembled the thing that you present. He was the dominant force in the activity that brought that material to your awareness. With regard to that question, which might just be like the end of where the buck stops, I guess. If the way you treat Ken Wilber is taking a lot of his ideas and then rejecting his primary theses about reality, calling his theory pre-trans fallacy, calling it mythological, calling it poetry as opposed to what it claims to be. If you're going to have bad faith in your presentation of the source of your material, that suggests to me that it might not be worth my time to engage with you, because what if you do that to me? What if you take my ideas and say, okay, I took a couple things from Unthink Me, and that's now my business that I make money with and that I present as an authority. But man, that guy sucks. What a loser. He's an idiot. He doesn't have any views on his channel, and he thinks like states of consciousness are real. He's like a child. He thinks that that you become enlightened and that means anything. That's not very gracious. Jeez, I never said any of that. I'm just saying I came here looking for answers. I found some answers. I want to share them with you because those answers have been very helpful to me. Part of sharing those answers is to argue against people who disagree with those answers or share opposite answers from those answers. But yeah, I hope that was at all comprehensible to mostly the fans of my channel, and any fans of Non-Reductionism that are coming to check this out. Welcome. Hi. I understand that it might not be comprehensible to like anyone else besides me and David, so my bad. But I highly recommend you check out his content, like, subscribe to his content, check out he's got a Patreon, you know, he offers coaching and one-on-one sessions. He's got a whole thing going. Go check it out, become a part of it, especially if you have the same thoughts on integral theory that he has, and you would differ with me on those points, that would be there are people out there with that belief and that opinion. I call them spiral dynamics or strict mode. I'm just saying it's the whole integral theory, but without any state training. I don't think that's a flaw. I don't think that's a problem. I think it's perfectly fine. I'm here to share states as well. And I really appreciate anyone out there spreading a meta theory, metacognition, vision logic by any name, making this second tier, level 7 revolution occur in the real world with your own life, with your own time. Especially if it's what you do. What a beautiful thing and how brave of you. So that's what I want to say to you, David. And yeah, just understanding I'm a YouTuber, not a business at this point. We're always reinventing ourselves. But at this point, I'm approaching things with a kind of lackadaisical attitude. I'm passionate, I'm just a funny guy having a crazy experience, sharing that with people. Willing to approach, really, really intense, deep philosophical issues, to jump into those and offer whatever I can with the integral theory, with the vision logic level 7 kind of way of thinking. I love this jam. I'm really happy with existence and my body, my appearance, my life, my mind, the conditions of my life. I'm really grateful and happy with that. And I'm really enjoying this experience of growing a weird niche philosophy YouTube channel. Is so awesome, and I can't believe how well it's doing and how much response I'm getting and everyone who's talking to me. Oh, it's glorious. I'm just loving it, and I'm having such a great time. I want more, but so far, man, it's totally enough, and I'm totally satisfied with it. That's who's making this video. That's what I'm all about. So that's my basic analysis, having watched his videos, and that's all I did. I just kind of had him on while I was working. And if everything goes my way, this phase where I'm making response videos will come to an end, and I'll have, things worked out a little better, and we'll just be having all sorts of discussions and panels with me and David and everyone else in the whole community. That's what I want to move toward, but right now the best I can do is just like this. And so I hope people like this, and I hope that you were able to follow along. And I hope that you get a kick out of the videos that David and I make, and that integral theory can be a part of your wonderful, beautiful existence here. Namaste to you all. And may we perhaps, in this very moment itself, without any prior consent, without any prior knowledge, just right here, right now, we are going to look directly and fully at what I am. What am I? There's a thing answering the question. There's a distraction. What am I? Looking at it. What is it? Who's looking at it? How are they looking at it? Well, these are words. Words don't help. Look at it. Not just do it now, just right now. You've wanted this. Forget about that. It is effortless, easy. Go all the way in. The whole thing. Easy and effortlessly stop the activity. What am I? You see nothing at all? That's just bullshit? Did you really do that? How do you feel right now? This sort of nonsense has changed my perspective about as much as levels, in my opinion, from my point of view. But I'm somewhat skilled at it. So maybe you're not. Maybe when you do that, just like I just said, just do that very literally. Just do that. Do it for quite a while. But that was sufficient. That was enough time for me to get a little bit of like, wait a minute, what's going on here? Wasn't the words I was saying. It was what they were pointing. It was what they were trying to communicate. I genuinely believe that if you just open-mindedly, benefit of the doubty, do what I just said, follow those instructions without rejecting them, without dismissing them, without saying Adam's a joke, whatever. He doesn't know what he's bad at this. If you very carefully watch what happens when you do that, you'll start to understand what states of consciousness are. That's where it starts there. And if you do that quite a bit for quite a long time, it's not just that little thing you saw there, that little, what? Weird. An avalanche of that. There is something here. There's something to that. It isn't the words. It's not the narrative. It's not to analyze under a microscope. It's certainly not poetry. It's not good English. It's not artful to what I just did. It's very matter of fact and very literal. But it's really nothing more than that. That I have the capacity to dissolve into nothingness right now. And that doesn't seem like it would be of value to you because you're all wrapped up in being a person and all your pain and conflicts and things you need to do and time's creeping up and everyone's after you. And so you don't even get why it would matter that you can dissolve into nothingness forever. Why would that matter? What does that have to do with anything? But the words I just said, even other people who've had the experience, they'll be like, no, he's not describing it right. Because it's just not a verbal thing. It's not a conceptual thing. It's not knowledge. It's just you have the experience, you come back here and you're full of shit again, and you're trying to tell people about this experience. And it doesn't help if you're even in the experience. It'll look the same way to you. But anyways, this is the fun we have. This is my love for my craft. I have so much fun doing this, and I hope I can squeeze in a couple of these a week. You know, I've been kind of hitting it hard, and I've been making them very, very simply, and I've been thinking a lot about stuff and just wanting to purge it all on you guys. I hope you're loving it. I'm loving it. Yeah! Salute to Cody Arbuckle, the tiny stuffed horse. Woo! Cody Arbuckle. I hope 11 people in the world just said your name and pumped their fist and said, yeah! Because they're so damn grateful to be the deciding factory in the history of the universe. Let's rock, baby. I think I understand what's actually going on with the rejection of states. I think that when I just did that little phony demo, here's what I think's happening. I think you're going, okay, yeah, my eyes are closed. Okay, yeah, I am the conscious universe. Yep. Right. My breath. Just no more thought process. All right. My body. Just paying attention to it. Maybe it'll go away after a while if I pay so much attention to it. Maybe it'll become something else. Let's see. Just got my camera out and I'm just filming it. Totally anonymous, nobody filming it. But this is the problem of, even up to level 7, if you haven't had state experiences, you're understanding the words that I'm saying differently. Because the whole time you've been a speaking social being, you've absorbed and learned and become this assumption of embodiment as a physical human and a human personality. And this is what will be disrupted, and the quadrants will be disrupted. This will all be disrupted when you see what actually is happening, what the state practice teaches. But if you are still identified with that thing, locked into that thing, constricted to that thing, quite certain of being that thing, now you're saying, okay, I'm the conscious universe. So as Adam, what does that mean? But see, this is the thing that's hard to learn, is you have to stop being Adam to be the conscious universe fully. Otherwise, you're like, okay, as conscious Adam, there's an idea. That's words. The words mean, apparently, this universe funnels into my experience somehow or something like that. It's weird. It's kind of a weird cosmic trippy thing. Maybe if I took some acid, I'd get it. Because all of that is coming from a like wired in, hardwired, cemented structure that no, I'm quite certain that the story of Adam Lowen is me. That's what I am. And so, okay, so I'm conscious of that. I'm aware of that. I know that. But who's the thing that's conscious in knowing? And that's the thing that seems like a mental gymnastic. It seems like a philosophical exercise. It seems like a debate point or something like that. But it's very literal, and it's very much like an instruction. It's not meant to translate what you think the thing is. It's meant to encourage you to look at it, to deconstrict from the thing that you've always been and always thought that you were. To relax and dissolve out of that, and to see the glorious, crazy, unbelievable truth of what you actually are when you stop telling yourself the things about you that your culture has taught you to think and say about yourself. But if you take a bold move and you just look at it yourself and examine it very directly, what's the examiner? Do I mean look at it? Do I mean think about it? How do you examine something? How do you become aware of something? What does that mean? Looking at this question, not with words, but just looking directly at it, not with your eyes, not regarding something. But what it really means is being the whole thing and not part of the thing. It means, in the properest sense, non-reductionism. Ken Wilber and I believe it's the future of human consciousness and human civilization. That the structure of our society would be informed by people who see the whole thing and not just their own personal experience and story. But not as a mindset, not as a thought process, not a belief about yourself, not a constructed identity. It is simply the fact of the matter of this experience, of all experience. And that's why it's called the ground of being. But no, I totally get it. What I'm saying, it's a two-track thing. It makes sense in multiple ways. Without the state experience and some fluency in that, it really sounds like juvenile gibberish or self-important posturing or something like that. So I don't know how to argue that. It's like, hey, I think you're a criminal. No. Did you steal something? No. Did you kill someone? No. Wait a minute. Why do you think I'm a criminal after all? What am I? What am I? Well, it's obvious. I'm this guy. What's that guy? Thought process, a body, a brain waves, a cultural construction. Nah, come on. Those are ways of looking at what you are. What are you? I don't know. But there's all these people telling you that you can know. You can know. Actually know, not just say you know. And I'm Adam the guy. I do the things that Adam's parents taught him to do. Come on. What are you really? Look at it. Ask yourself. Give yourself permission. Love you guys. Peace out.